What up, what up, what up? How are y'all doing? I'm doing great as usual. Everybody out there in MooresHouse, I want to give a special shout out to. I hope you and yours are doing well, and I hope everybody is staying safe. Now. It's April 11th. This is Sunday night. After a big weekend of boxing, we saw a lot of great fights, folks. Saw a lot of great fights. But before we get started, make sure you do me a favor, like and subscribe, and make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend. And since I am not monetized yet, if y'all want to support the channel, make sure you check me out. Hit me up at the cash at Mooresy85. That'd be much appreciated. But we had a hell of a weekend in boxing. We had three different cards. And that's what I like to see. I like to see every promotional company staying busy, and I like to see young fighters out there being active. I'm going to start it off with the fight cards that I didn't see too much of. I got a message earlier on in the afternoon to go meet one of my family members and hang out and play a little poker. So I did not see all the fights. I tried to keep up the best I could on my phone. But I made sure I came back. I did my homework. I watched the fight replays on the fights that I cared about. And let me tell you, I was not disappointed. It was an outstanding day/night of boxing. I'm going to get started with the two cards, like I said, that I didn't see too much of. I just came home and watched the fight replays. Let's start out with Joe Smith Jr. He was in a title fight with, I don't know how you pronounce his name, Vlazov. A tough guy, a really tough guy. Nobody expected him to give Joe Smith that type of fight, but let me tell you, it's a fight of the year candidate. It was back and forth. There's arguments on both sides on who should have won. Ultimately, Joe Smith got the decision, got the nod, and he is the new, I believe it's lightweight champion. And it was a great fight. Like I said, I tried to do my best on keeping up with the fights as they were happening, but it's damn near impossible when you were trying to play cards and mingling and hanging out with people. It was just too much, but I tried my best. But y'all, you know me and you know this channel. I like to tell you guys about bandwagon fights that will attract you to the sport of boxing, and this is one of them. You should go back and watch it. Joe Smith Jr. versus Vlazov. I don't know how to pronounce the name. I'm butchering it, but it was a great fight, and we might see a rematch in that fight. That's how close it was. The second late card was the Showtime card with Jerome Boots versus Sergey Lipinets. Wow. What a statement. What a statement. I did not see this fight going down how it went down. I was shocked. I was surprised. Everybody out there knows Sergey Lipinets. I think his first big fight that everybody knew him from was the Mikey Garcia fight at a lower weight class. So keep in mind that Lipinets was, even though he's fought a couple times at 147 pounds, he is coming from a lighter weight division. But there was a lot of questions out there on Boots Ennis. A lot of questions. Is he ready for the big time? You know, he's kind of in that second tier of quality fighters. And we just weren't sure what we were going to get in this fight. And I have to tell you the truth, it blew me away. I am completely shocked. Jerome Boots Ennis definitely showed that he is the real deal. Definitely showed that he is ready for the big time. I would have no problem right now throwing him in with the top guys of the division. And when I say top guys, you know who I'm talking about. Sean Porter, Keith Thurman, Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford. I mean, he is definitely ready. Uh, it was an outstanding performance. I think Boots Ennis controlled the fight completely, all except for the second round. The second round, Sergey Lipinets looked like he was turning the page, looked like he was going to make this a fight, but Jerome Boots Ennis just settled down, stayed composed, and did the business. Sergey Lipinets is known to be a big puncher, no matter the weight class he's in. Obviously, he's coming from a lower weight class up to 147 pounds. But the one thing that is known about Sergey Lipinets is that he is a big puncher. And in that second round and in that fourth round, Sergey Lipinets hit Boots Ennis with some hellacious shots. And it was almost like Jerome Boots Ennis just brushed him off. And he looked at him and said, "Is that all you got?" And I think as soon as that happened, I'm going to say the second round because that was the big round. I'm going to say as soon as that happens, I think Jerome Boots Ennis realized and looked at Lipinets and said, "Now you're screwed, buddy. I just took your best punch, and it didn't affect me." And that was a surprise to me. I thought that Lipinets could hurt him. I thought he would hurt him. Unfortunately for him, Jerome Boots Ennis proved to everybody that he does have a chin and he's ready for the big time. So I can't wait to see what the PBC does with good old Boots Ennis going forward. He's got so many options being on that PBC side, being on that side that has so many 147-pound fighters, and not only just any old fighters, but the top fighters of that division. Jerome Boots Ennis knocked Lipinets out in the sixth round. A complete shocker, but it was great to see. It's great to see new blood stepping up in that 147-pound division. It's great to see that. We need some new faces. I'm tired of seeing the round robin of the same old faces, and you know them. Thurman, Porter, Spence. We need some new blood in that division. We need some new blood. And I think Ennis just proved himself to be at that elite level. And I can't wait to see what happens next. Speaking of the 147-pound division, we have a kid out of the UK who is an up-and-coming star. I think you guys know exactly who I'm talking about. He is tipped to be the next pay-per-view star coming out of the UK. And that gentleman goes by the name of Conor Benn. Conor Benn is a younger fighter. He's the son to a legend from the UK, Nigel Benn. And yesterday, he had a big step up himself. I don't think quite as big as Ennis. I don't think he proved as much as Jerome Boots Ennis. But needless to say, this was a big step up for Conor Benn. He fought Samuel Vargas. If you know Vargas, he is known for being a tough, durable fighter that shows up each and every night. And what happened? As soon as that bell rang in the first round, Conor Benn was all over him. Did not let up and stopped Samuel Vargas in the first round. Now, there's some controversy if the stoppage was too soon. Samuel Vargas kept saying after the fight was over that he had a lot more to give. Unfortunately for him, the referee did not see it that way. Samuel Vargas took a lot of clean punches, a lot of hard punches against the ropes. And when you're up against the ropes and you're not throwing back, and the punches that are landing on you is snapping your head back every time, that does not look good. Now, that doesn't mean you're hurt. It doesn't mean that you're on the verge of getting knocked out. But what it shows to the referee is that you're getting hit clean, you're getting hit hard, and you're not throwing back. So with everybody in the boxing world saying, fights are going on too long, people are getting really seriously hurt in the ring, was this a good stoppage? Now, in my eyes, at first, it looked very quick. I thought the stoppage was horrible at first. But then when you see the replay and you pay attention to the time in between the shots that Samuel Vargas was receiving, how hard those shots were, it's not like Samuel Vargas was up on the ropes, covered up, and he was getting, pity patted. He was getting hit with hard, clean shots, and his head was snapping back. Now, Vargas got hit with a barrage of punches, and the first couple snapped his head back, and the ref let it continue. But after that last right uppercut that snapped his head back, and he kind of looked, after his head got snapped back, his eyes didn't go right back to Conor Benn. His eyes were fluttering out in the distance. He didn't react with his eyes back to his opponent as soon as possible. He got hit, and his eyes were staring off at the distance. And then he focused in on Conor Benn. And I think that was the moment that the ref said, all right, enough is enough. He's not throwing back. He's getting punched. And he's not only is he getting punched, but he's getting punched hard. And it's not just taking blows off the shoulder or the head. It's actually snapping the head back. And that looks a lot worse than it could be at times. But the referee did what he had to do. He jumped in and stopped the fight. Conor Benn, another 147-pounder, made a big statement after the fight. I mean, he did something that was completely ludicrous, outlandish. He started calling out Porter, some other people. But when he said Porter's name, I mean, we got to be realistic here. There's levels to boxing. Conor Benn, you're a great fighter, but can we slow down on calling out Sean Porter? You're not there yet. Now, if you want to go and fight Amir Khan or Kell Brook, whose names you also shouted out, go ahead and do that. They're past their best, but stop talking about Sean Porter. You're not there yet, all right? But a great performance, a great win. It's going to catapult him up at the higher levels of Matchroom, his promotional company. And as soon as crowds get back, I think it's going to show that people are going to tune in to, not only tune in, but show up to see him and pay money for a ticket. Also on that card, the co-main event was Savannah Marshall versus Lindbergh. I believe it was a German lady who's definitely past her prime, 40-plus years old, but it's a late replacement. Savannah Marshall has been training for 12 weeks for another opponent that fell out for whatever reason. I did not hear why she fell out. So Savannah Marshall got a tough late replacement to come in and accept the fight. This woman, Lindbergh, I believe that's her name. I'm sorry if I'm butchering it or not even got the right name, but I believe that's who it was. Is a woman that's never been stopped. Never even come close to being stopped. And Savannah Marshall played with her. Made her look like a person off the streets. I mean, absolutely demolished her. And after the second knockdown, She would not get up. As the referee was counting, she was looking at the referee and shaking her head. And that's how the fight ended. A big overhand right from Savannah Marshall knocked her opponent out. Now, the case with Savannah Marshall is an interesting one. Because if you go back into the history of Savannah Marshall, she defeated Clarissa Shields in the amateurs. Now, Clarissa Shields, if you do not know, is probably one of the, if not the biggest name in women's boxing. If she's not the biggest, she's definitely the second behind Katie Taylor. Now, every time Savannah Marshall fights, you see Clarissa Shields on social media talking trash, saying who's her opponent, who really cares about Savannah Marshall, she's irrelevant, she needs me for the big fight, blah, blah, blah. Well, skill-wise, they belong in the ring with each other. History-wise, it shows that Savannah Marshall can beat Clarissa Shields. And every time Savannah Marshall fights, you see Clarissa Shields talking crap. And I think that's because Clarissa Shields is a proud fighter. She doesn't like the fact that the public knows about that loss that she took on the hands of Savannah Marshall. So I think that's part of the reason. But also I think they're in the process of building one of the biggest women fights that can happen. And Savannah Marshall versus Clarissa Shields sometime in November and December would be a huge fight. And I would not want to miss it. If it was a headlining fight, I'd pay money to see it. That's how big this women's fight would be. Not just for women's boxing, but for the sport of boxing in general. A lot of boxing fans would tune in to see that. And then right before that fight, we had Shannon Courtney against Ebony Bridges. Now, this fight was well talked about. This fight was well promoted due to the hands of the trash talk between these two fighters. We had Shannon Courtney from the UK and Ebony Bridges from Australia. This was a WBA bantamweight title fight, I believe. It's a great fight, and it turned out to be a great fight. But my question to the boxing public and the fans, why is the ranked 6th and 7th fighting for a world title? How does that happen? Does that happen because of all the publicity followed by this fight? Is that why the vacant title was on the line for the ranked 6th and 7th or the 5th and 6th fighter of that weight class in that organization's body? Is that why? Because of the promotion of the fight? Well, regardless if this fight was for a title and if these two girls deserved the title shot, I say girls, these two women, I meant to say. They're not girls. They're women. But needless to say, belt or not, how much promotion the fight got, how much build-up there was for this fight, it doesn't matter because whatever you thought about either of these two women, what we saw as fans was a hell of a fight. We saw swollen eyes. We saw blood. We saw sweat, determination, the no quit. The first time Ebony Bridges went 10 rounds. Both fighters were hurt during the fight. It was one hell of a fight. And I believe the right person won the fight. But during that fight, and I'll tell you who won in a second, but during that fight, we saw two scorecards that did not reflect what type of fight this was and how close of a fight it was. On two of the scorecards, I believe we saw a 97 versus a 92 scorecard. If my memory serves me right, which is not the case at all. You could give it to either fighter by 1 or 2 rounds. You could give it a draw. Either way, we want to see the fight again because that's how good it was. Both women should be proud of the way they fought, and it was a great fight. Shannon Courtney got the decision. She is now the new WBA bantamweight champion, and it was a great build-up. Matchroom, Eddie Hearn, Sky Sports, DAZN, they did a great job pushing this fight. I believe this fight had more attention than the actual main event. And it was just a great card all around. The first fight that I tuned into, and congratulations to Shannon Courtney and Ebony Bridges. Like I said, it was one hell of a fight. Nobody should hold their head down. And I would pay money to see that fight again. So I'm pretty sure this is not going to be the last we see of Ebony Bridges working with Eddie Hearn, DAZN, Sky Sports. I'm pretty sure we'll see her back because the woman has a good social media following and she brings eyes to the sport. If you want to say it's for the wrong or right reasons, I don't care. I just know that it was a great fight, and I'd like to see it again. But the first fight that I saw during the night was Cash Farouk versus Espinoza. Wow, wow, wow. Another fight of the year candidate. It was just nonstop action. It reminded me just a couple weeks ago of Strata versus Chocolatito. It was a hell of a fight. Cash Farouk got the decision. I believe he should have gotten the decision. But it was a back and forth fight. It was nonstop, bloodied and bruising and sweating. And it was a great fight. And that's what you want in a boxing event. That's what you want in a boxing card. You know, when you watch some of these big cards, like the Mayweather and Pacquiao, or just name it, any big fight, Fury, Wilder, you tune into the undercard. Canelo, this is a good example. Canelo versus Yildirim a couple weeks ago in Miami. You watch the undercard and there's nobody in the stands. And I'm not talking about COVID-19 because Canelo versus Yildirim, you could have fans. But just in general, in the history of boxing, you tune in to a pay-per-view boxing card and you're watching the undercards, the undercard fights, and nobody's in the stands. Nobody's there. Why nobody's there is because whether certain lower fights are not being promoted, or just the fans don't know about them, or they're just one-sided, lopsided fights. Of course the fans are not going to show up. They buy a ticket to see the main event. And Kaz Farouk versus Espinoza is a great example of how you start a card, start to finish, make sure everybody shows up at the beginning of the fight card, produce more money for the concession stands, for the merchandise, when you get people there for the whole event, not just the main event. And this fight definitely was a great fight. And if you had a ticket, actually in this case you couldn't get a ticket, but for some reason if fans were able to go to this show and watch it, this fight is an example of why you want to be there when the card starts. And promoters and networks and managers and different boxing companies, take a hint from what we just saw from DAZN. You need a card start to finish. I'm sick of these one lopsided cards. Nobody knows who's fighting except the main event. The card starts at 7 p.m., but nobody shows up until 9:30 p.m. because that's when the main event is about to start. Or they show up for the co-main event. All you promoters out there, you need to build a card start to finish. When you tune into a UFC fight, a UFC pay-per-view card, when fans were able to be in the audience, when you watch the fight on TV, some of these undercards, you don't look in the stands and see a completely empty arena. No, you don't. Because every fight is a good fight. Every fight is a possible 50-50 fight. And that's what boxing needs to implement. And I think that's what the Zone is trying to do in this first fight. I know there was another fight on before, Cash Farouk and Espinoza, but this was the second fight, I believe. And this is what you need. You need great fights through and through your card. Even if boxing fans don't know who everybody is, because it's impossible to know who everybody is. But if I tune into a boxing fight, and if I don't know the two fighters, but right away I can tell that it's a 50-50 fight, or right away I can tell it's going to be a great fight to watch, entertaining, then I'm in. I'm there, whether I know the fighters or not. And I think the Zone did a great job this past weekend on the Conor Benn Vargas card. And boxing promoters need to start thinking like that. Just don't go top heavy on the main event and forget about the rest of the card. You know, give us good fights. And like I said, we do not care as boxing fans if these fights, if we know every fighter's name. We care if it's a good fight, if it's an entertaining product. And I hate to say that and sound like that, like a product. They're product. No, they're fighters. But you know what I'm saying. We as fans care that we see realistic fights, not lopsided, one-sided fights. You know, that does nothing for the sport of boxing. So I'm going off on this rant because Espinoza and Cash Farouk was such a good fight, and it was a second fight on the card, and it was great to see. And when you see a first or second fight like that, you know that, man, the show's starting out real good. What else is coming up? You know, what's next? If this second fight was that good, what could be happening next? I got to stay tuned in. I got to watch, see what happens. But that's my rant. That's my review on this weekend's boxing. Make sure everybody out there in MooresHouse, make sure y'all are staying safe. Make sure that y'all are staying healthy. Do me a favor, like and subscribe, and make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend. And as of now, with MooresHouse not being monetized, if you want to support the channel, hit me up on a Cash App, Mooresy85. That'd be much appreciated. Holla at your boy. Peace.